Lades and Gantherman, there's something profoundly mysterious about the way people connect. Not just emotionally, but psychologically, spiritually, even subconsciously. Sometimes without realizing it, you become etched into someone's nervous system. You become a pattern, a habit, a silent addiction. They start thinking about you when they wake up, not because they choose to, but because your presence has embedded itself into their mind. It's like you've left a trace in their emotional circuitry, a resonance they can't quite escape. You've become a reference point in their psychological landscape. And whether they admit it or not, they keep coming back to you in thought, in memory, in comparison. That's when you know you've become their silent addiction. You see, human beings are not built for detachment. We bond. We form attachments. Sometimes to people, sometimes to ideas, sometimes to pain. And when that bond forms around someone who moves us, it becomes nearly impossible to let go. And that's powerful, but also dangerous. Because addiction, even emotional addiction, isn't just about desire. It's about dependency. So if you ever sense that someone is silently addicted to your presence, don't mock it, don't abuse it. Recognize it for what it is, a reflection of the depth you carry. And remember, the same capacity that makes you unforgettable to others is the same capacity that can make you suffer when you care deeply. When you meet someone who truly impacts your life, the connection doesn't just happen on the surface. It doesn't stay in the realm of words, glances, or fleeting moments. Something far deeper occurs, something that psychology, biology, and even philosophy struggle to fully explain. You leave a trace within them, a psychological fingerprint, a resonance that lingers long after the conversations fade. And that's what people rarely understand. Emotions don't simply vanish. They imprint themselves into the nervous system, shaping perception, memory, and behavior in subtle yet powerful ways. When you share real moments with someone, moments of vulnerability, laughter, or pain, those experiences engage the most ancient parts of the brain, the ones wired for survival and connection. The body releases chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine, the same compounds that reinforce habits and addictions. So when someone says they can't stop thinking about you, that's not poetic exaggeration. That's a neurochemical reality. You've become a pattern in their biology. Every time they recall your voice, your smile, or the way you made them feel, their brain fires the same pathways that once lit up in your presence. They're reliving a fragment of you, not by choice, but by conditioning. We often think of addiction as something external, substances, screens, distractions. But emotional addiction is perhaps the most complex kind. It's invisible and it disguises itself as nostalgia, curiosity, or even resentment. A person may tell themselves they're over you, yet they still notice things that remind them of you. A song, a phrase, a time of day. That's not coincidence. It's their mind revisiting the imprint you left behind, trying to reassemble the emotional picture it once understood as safe, real, or alive. Or Jordan Peterson often says that human beings are meaning-making creatures. We don't just experience life, we interpret it. When someone significant enters your world, they become a symbol in your psychological landscape. They represent meaning, and meaning is powerful. Once your brain attaches emotional significance to a person, it doesn't let go easily, because to forget them would mean to dismantle part of your inner narrative. The story that tells you who you are and what your experiences meant. That's why losing someone who mattered feels like losing a part of yourself. In a very real sense, you are. This emotional imprinting can happen quietly. It doesn't require constant contact or grand gestures. Sometimes, all it takes is a single conversation that hit too deep, a moment when two souls recognized each other beneath all the masks. And from that point onward, you live in their psychological structure. Not as an obsession, but as a resonance. They may move through life, meet new people, build new stories, yet somewhere within them you remain a reference point. The mind compares new experiences to old ones. It asks, often subconsciously, does this feel like that? And when it doesn't, there's a subtle H, a reminder that something rare was lost. But this isn't just about romance or attraction. It applies to all deep human connections, mentors, friends, even fleeting encounters that shifted perspective. When you impact someone authentically, your energy becomes part of their emotional architecture. It's the echo of your kindness, your honesty, your presence. That's why it's so important to move through life consciously. Every word, every act of empathy, every moment of understanding can leave an imprint in someone's emotional world. You never know whose mind you might be living in long after you've gone. And so, when you find that someone still thinks of you, still carries your memory, still feels your absence, understand that it's not weakness on their part. It's the depth of their humanity, their mind, their heart, and their biology are acknowledging that something meaningful once existed. You became more than a memory, you became a part of their internal world. And that's not something people can easily erase. It's not obsession. It's the echo of connection. The undeniable proof that we, as human beings, were never meant to live untouched. People aren't drawn to perfection. They're drawn to what feels real. Authenticity carries a kind of gravity that polished charm can never replace. You can pretend, you can posture, you can curate your image to appear flawless, but deep down, others can feel the truth. There's something within the human spirit that recognizes honesty, even when it's quiet. That's why authenticity hooks people at a level far beneath conscious awareness. It's not about how attractive you are, how confident you seem, or how well you play the social game. It's about whether you feel true. When you're authentic, you give permission for others to be human too. You signal safety. You say, without words, it's okay to drop the mask here. And that's what makes people silently addicted to you. Because in a world obsessed with appearance, they find rest in your realness. They don't crave you because you're flawless. They crave you because they feel seen in your presence. You reflect something back to them that most people ignore. Their own hidden depth, their quiet pain, their untold stories. You listen when others talk over them. You stay calm when others panic. You tell the truth when others hide behind comfort. That steadiness becomes a kind of emotional oxygen for them. Most people live surrounded by performance, social performance, emotional performance, digital performance. Everyone's showing, selling, convincing. But when they encounter someone grounded in truth, it shocks the nervous system. Suddenly, the act feels unbearable. They find themselves drawn to you, but they can't explain why. They'll say things like, there's just something about you. That something is authenticity, the rare alignment between your words, your emotions, and your actions. You've become a consistent signal in a world full of noise. The reason authenticity becomes addictive is psychological. When someone is around a genuine person, their brain relaxes. The defense mechanisms, the filters, the constant vigilance, they begin to soften. The body interprets authenticity as safety, and safety is the most addictive feeling of all. That's why they start missing your presence. It's not just you they miss. It's the peace they felt when they were around you. They remember the sound of your voice, the steadiness in your tone, the way you didn't need to prove anything. You grounded them, even when they didn't realize they were floating. Authenticity also reveals contrast. When someone experiences your honesty, everything else feels artificial. That's why they can't forget you easily. They try to connect with others, but it doesn't feel the same. They sense when someone's performing, when someone's hiding behind charm or ego. You've raised their emotional standard. Not intentionally, but naturally. Once someone tastes truth, they lose their appetite for imitation. Jordan Peterson often reminds us that truth is the foundation of meaning. Without truth, everything collapses. Relationships, identity, purpose. So when you live authentically, you become a source of stability for others. You represent meaning in a fragmented world. People unconsciously attach themselves to that. They don't just want to be near you, they want to be like you. Because in your truth, they see their own potential for courage. You remind them that honesty and vulnerability can coexist. You show that strength doesn't have to be loud. It can be quiet, humble, yet unwavering. But authenticity isn't easy. It's not about oversharing or being blunt. It's about living in alignment with your values, even when it costs you approval. It's about saying no when it's uncomfortable, admitting fear when it's inconvenient, and standing by your principles when others bend. That's the paradox. Authenticity attracts people, but it also isolates you. The ones who aren't ready for truth will drift away. The ones who are will stay, sometimes silently, because they recognize in you something sacred, a mirror of what they've been searching for in themselves. And that's what makes authenticity powerful enough to become addictive. You become a symbol of what's real, what's rare, what's human. Your presence reminds them that there's still honesty in the world. And once someone feels that, they'll never see you as ordinary again. You won't be just another person who passed through their life. You'll be the one who reminded them what it means to feel alive in truth. When someone can't let go of you, it's not always because they're obsessed. Sometimes it's because you meant something to them that went beyond attraction, beyond comfort, beyond companionship. You became part of the story they told themselves about who they are. That's what real connection does. It weaves two narratives together until the edges blur. When you leave, or when distance grows, it's not just the person they miss. It's the meaning attached to you. The mind doesn't mourn the body, it mourns the symbol. Every person you meet represents something. One might symbolize freedom, another stability, another adventure or peace. When someone feels an unexplainable pull towards you, that deep, quiet H, it's often because you embodied something they were longing for. Maybe you reminded them of who they were trying to become. Maybe you were the calm in their storm, or the spark in their dull routine. You awakened something that had been sleeping in them, and once awakened, it refuses to go back to sleep. That's not obsession. That's meaning. And meaning is the most powerful force in the human psyche. Jordan Peterson often talks about how meaning is what sustains people when everything else falls apart. It's stronger than pleasure, stronger than comfort. Meaning is what gives suffering purpose. So when someone associates you with meaning, you don't just exist as a person in their life. You exist as purpose. You become a chapter in their personal myth. The part of the story that shaped who they became after meeting you. And even if that chapter ends, the impact doesn't. Because we never truly forget the people who gave our lives direction. When people say, I can't stop thinking about them, what they're really saying is, I can't stop thinking about what they represented to me. It's not the text messages or the late night talks they're addicted to. It's the emotional world those moments created. You were the feeling of being understood, the reminder that depth still exists, the experience of being alive in a way that routine never provides. They don't miss the details, they miss the meaning. That's why even years later, certain memories still carry weight. The brain has filed them not under past, but under significant. It's important to understand that this kind of attachment isn't unhealthy by itself. It's what makes us human. To find meaning in another person is to be touched at the level of soul, and that's rare. The problem arises when people confuse meaning with dependency. Meaning elevates you, dependency confines you. When you're addicted to meaning, you grow through the connection. When you're addicted to the person, you decay in their absence. The goal is to carry the meaning forward, not to chain yourself to the memory. Still, it's understandable why it's so hard to let go. When something or someone fills a void you didn't even know you had, it feels like losing oxygen when it's gone. But that's also where growth begins. The emptiness left behind isn't punishment, it's space being made for transformation. The meaning that began with someone else can evolve into something that defines you, what they represented. Peace, love, confidence, freedom can now become part of your own identity. In a way, that's the purpose of deep connection. People enter your life to show you parts of yourself you couldn't see alone. You meet them, you connect, you feel alive, and then you're forced to grow in their absence. That's how meaning works. It moves you forward, even through pain. So when someone can't let go of you, it's because you served as a bridge to something larger, a reminder of what life could feel like when it was honest and full. And when you can't let go of someone else, remember this too. You're not longing for the person as they are, but for the meaning you found through them. They showed you something about your own depth, your own capacity to feel and to love. That's not a weakness. That's sacred. It means your heart still recognizes what matters. It means that behind all the loss, confusion, and distance, the connection was real, and real things don't fade. They evolve into meaning, and meaning lasts far beyond the moment it was born. Becoming someone's silent addiction is not just an emotional experience. It's a kind of power. When you touch another person's mind and heart so deeply that they can't forget you, you occupy a rare and sacred space in their inner world. But with that power comes a responsibility that too many people overlook. You can choose to use that influence to heal or to harm, to elevate someone's soul or to deepen their wounds. Every connection that goes deep enough to leave a mark is, in some way, an act of stewardship. And how you handle it reveals your character. When someone is drawn to you in that silent, almost spiritual way, it's not always about attraction or desire. Often, it's because you've reached into a part of them they rarely show. Maybe you gave them understanding when others gave judgment. Maybe you listened when the world was loud. Or maybe you simply saw them, truly saw them. And that kind of recognition is unforgettable. People spend their entire lives searching for someone who can see them without filters, without manipulation, without indifference. When you give that gift, it creates an emotional bond that lingers far beyond physical presence. That's why they still think of you. That's why they can't completely detach. You became part of their emotional structure, the space in their story where honesty and comfort lived. But here's where the responsibility enters. When you realize someone has attached to you that deeply, how you treat them next matters profoundly. If you exploit that bond, you can do real damage. You can make them doubt their worth, their judgment, even their ability to trust again. That's the shadow side of connection, the temptation to use emotional influence for control, validation, or ego. And once you cross that line, you don't just break their heart, you fracture something much deeper, their belief in genuine connection. Jordan Peterson often says that responsibility gives life meaning. The same applies here. If someone sees light in you, it's not an invitation to manipulate. It's a call to protect that light, to preserve the integrity of what made the connection real. When you realize that your words can soothe your scar, you begin to act with greater awareness. You speak more carefully. You show up with more honesty. You become accountable not just for your actions, but for the emotional ripple they create. Because the truth is, leaving a mark on someone's soul is inevitable, but the kind of mark you leave is a choice. The people who leave others stronger after connection. Those are the rare ones. They understand that the depth of their influence demands humility. They don't seek to be unforgettable through chaos or drama. they become unforgettable because they brought peace, clarity, and truth. They become the kind of presence that shapes someone's growth, not their grief. And that's a far higher form of love than infatuation or dependence. It's moral love, grounded in respect for the other's well-being. To carry that kind of responsibility means you live consciously. You become aware that every conversation, every silence, every goodbye carries weight. Sometimes, walking away kindly is the most compassionate thing you can do. Sometimes, staying silent is gentler than offering false hope. Responsibility and connection doesn't always mean staying. It means acting in alignment with truth, even when it's painful. The power to touch someone deeply is a rare human gift, but the moment you realize someone carries you in their thoughts, you face a choice to become a source of clarity or confusion, healing or hurt. And your choice will define not just how they remember you, but how you remember yourself. Because when you have depth, people will feel it. They will attach to it. They will reflect it back to you in ways that can both uplift and burden you. The challenge then is to hold that power gently, to understand that being unforgettable is not the goal. Being good is to leave someone better for having known you, not broken in your absence. That is what it means to take responsibility for the depth you carry. That is what it means to love consciously. And that, more than anything, is the mark of someone who understands the true weight of human connection.